Right. No. That's good stuff because, you know, as men, I think that for the most part, like for instance, you gave the example, you know, you didn't grow up with a dad. You know, some guys did, some guys don't. Um, People choose to remain stuck or they choose to become unstuck in situations in life, right? Um, do bad things happen to people? Absolutely. It goes unsaid, but very true in life. But I don't think that, you know, in life it's okay to sit there and say, hey, this is the leaning post that I'm going to lean on because I got you know dealt a bad deck in life, right?
Yep.
So that's why I'm unhealthy. That's why I'm dissatisfied in my job. That's why I'm not doing well. That's why, you know, my marriage is failing, right? Or I'm not doing well in school and or in the you know the specific sport that I might be in as a youngster, you know, as a kid, teenager, whatever. I think that people as a whole, men, what we have to do is we have to recognize our situation, what our goals are, what we want to accomplish, and create those disciplines because I think those disciplines turn into lifestyle, right?
Yes.
If it's turning into a lifestyle, then getting up early in the morning, you know, give it a quick example. So, what's your start time in the morning for training?
Yep. I do my strength training in the gym. I get up around 5 o'clock in the morning to get my workout in because I'll have my
Yeah.
run in the evening time. So it requires, two a day for myself. So yeah,
So, two a days. Yeah, just for funsies, right?
yeah, that's it. You make a good point. It starts that, if you start the day with an excuse, oh, I don't want to get up, I'm too tired, you're just
Exactly.
propelling and you're going to make it easier. So I tell people all the time, it's mental kung fu, right? Tell yourself, I get to get up. Because imagine some of those
Yeah.
people, and I can reflect on people in the military who don't have limbs. Uh, it is
Right.
difficult for them to get out of bed, painful. They got to find their prosthetics.
Right.
Imagine being that. So when I
Right.
and I'm at fault and I have weaknesses, but I use those times to say, you know what? I get to get out of bed. I'm not going to hit the snooze alarm. I'm going to get up there and do work because I get to, because there's so many others that don't. So I try to tell people all the time, find somebody in your life that can help you when you're low on motivation. It can't be your sole motivation. That motivation's got to be internalized through
Right.
maybe your goals, but find something when you
Right.
are feeling a little weak that, you can turn it around and say, no, I get to get out of bed. Start with that and it changes the perspective.
You know, so this morning you'll kind of get a kick out of this. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I've got Cole on my podcast today. So this I got to do some stuff today. So I'm sitting there like, okay, what am I going to do? And so I rep out uh, what was it, 100 flies is what I started with. And my arms were ready to fall off. They're just so ready to fall off because like I'm gonna do something. For me, it was a challenge. You know, you get back into 75. I'm like, wow, these things are
Yeah.
getting heavy. So so then I go into push-ups, and you know, basically, I mean, for you, you know, you're savage. So you know, for me, 150 push-ups, I can live with that, right? You know, every day I'm getting after it in some way, shape, or form. But see, what I'm trying to get to you guys is that you know Cole's a high end athlete, decorated military service, ranger, but the choice is still the same. You got to get up. You got to get out of bed. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody's caring what you're doing. Nobody's at my house going, "Hey, man, guy got up at five o'clock to get started." Right? They don't care. Nobody cares. Right? At the end of the day, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and go, "I'm satisfied with what I attempted today." You know, and then it just starts to grow from that standpoint in your mentality. You're like, "Hey, that wasn't enough. That wasn't cutting the mustard." So I might go for a run. Let's start touching marathon levels, right? If you're a half person, it might be a person that says, "Hey, by the way, I started out, you know, with a Spartan Sprint, but now I'm chewing on the beast a little bit. You know, I'm challenging myself, right? It's mentality." But in the military, like you were saying earlier, um, you know, in our conversation was that you look at the leader according to his decorations. When I say decorations, meaning that basically his training data. So what he score on his shoot, what he score on his, on his event, and a lot of people don't know this. Well, I know a lot of people in the race industry knows about you, but best Ranger event, so you share some of the same dirt with Robert Killian.
Yep.
And so here's the thing about that guy. So I think I talked to you about this one time. And so I don't know what his status is because I haven't really, I haven't talked to him just in a little bit. But the last time when he was National Guard, so he was not, and correct me if I say this wrong, regular active duty. Is that correct? Right? So he won that at a National Guard enlisted level. And so there's I don't want to say it pissed anybody off, but it kind of put some cleat in your back a little bit, and knowing that this guy, he won it, is, man, that's not an easy feat, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, you're right. The National Guard. So bottom line, for those who don't know, Best Ranger, 56 years now. So it was established by General Grange, Ranger. He said, hey, I want to get the two best Rangers. A Ranger team is two Rangers, all divisions, Ranger regiment, special operations. And I want one event a year. Let's put them through 61 straight hours of Ranger tasks, very specialized, and see who's the best of the best. Because we already know Rangers, they're there. Now we want the best of the best from every organization division. So that's gone on for many years. So just to even make it to a Best Ranger competition is already, it's one of the highlights of my career, just to be able to compete and finish. But Robert Killian, awesome dude, outside of just being an athlete, just a person. Yeah, he is a National Guard soldier. Now, normally you equate that to part-time, but as National Guard, as he does, he volunteers for active duty orders. So he can be on orders for a year at a time, 2 years at a certain job, and then can go back to. And while he was racing, competitively, he stayed in the National Guard because that way he had time to do all the racing. And so as a and I hate to say the word part-time soldier, but as a National Guard soldier, he went to Best Ranger, and it's tough. There's only one National Guard Ranger team that's going to go, where all the active duty units fill the other 50 teams. And they dominated. Him and his teammate dominated, not only once but a couple times. And he's gone other and he's also been top 1, 2, 3, or 4 the other times. But we were there at the same year. I didn't know him, of course, in at the time in 2009. Or excuse me, 2012. But we were there at the same time. So it was really cool. We share that bond. Now
that is cool.
Many years older than him, but it is pretty cool.
Wait. Let's park the Humvee for a second. So let me ask you this. So people don't know this, but you're 51, 50 or 51 now?
51 this year.
You're 51 this year. Yeah. And what's Robert? Your junior. What is
He's
he now?
41, I believe. He turned 41 this year. Maybe 42 by the end of the year. Yeah.
10 years difference. This is what amazes me. And, I'm going to brag on Cole a little bit more because people don't understand what these guys put themselves through as an obstacle course racer. And to even put your toe in the swimming pool of elite, man, you're putting yourself up against other cheetahs. And that's all that goes in there. You're talking apex people right there.
Oof.
And so when I think about that, and I'm thinking about the difference, I always give Cole a comment and say, "Listen, man, you got to do it for his old dudes. You got to pull the rope here, man. We got to get it going." And of course, he'd always show up and kill it. But if you understand the mentality of that, and I'm just thinking about what your accomplishments are, man, it just amazes me, And so now you're sitting in, Best Ranger event, and so you and Robert, now that you guys know each other, right? What's that like now? you've went up against Robert, right?
Yeah, in races, stadium races, other
Yeah.
Spartan races.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a Spartan world champion for one,
Yes.
two time.
Yes.
So obviously he's another caliber. A triathlete in the Army was champion in Kona.
Yeah.
So he's an incredible athlete, and it's someone I've looked up to because again, one, his demeanor, right? He gives off that persona of leadership and respect. And I respect what I knew it took to do all his accomplishments, but yet he's down to earth. He's willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
He's a family man. And I respected that. And coming in early into the sport of OCR, there's a few people you look at and you're like, you know what? I respect what they do. And you want to emulate some of those qualities, just like if you in the military, there's those leaders that I had as I'm coming up the ranks that there's qualities you would like to emulate. But I think he's a great ambassador, even though I'm 10, 11 years older. I still have mad respect for him. And as I do for many of the elite athletes who are much min junior my years, because I understand the dedication, the determination they have to be at that level and to compete at that level and the sacrifices that it takes. And I think there's some shared respect there. No, it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
So let me ask you this. So something that I learned recently, so I want to identify this. So Robert is Ranger or Ranger qualified. Now, people don't know that because for the most part, they get a Ranger tab. They're like, oh, the Ranger, right?
Right.
So tell the difference.
Well, he's two tabs. So he's actually a long tabber. Long tabber we call special forces. So he went through special forces selection, and then he went to what we call the qualification course to get his long tab. So the reality is he's actually in his National Guard unit, if I'm not mistaken, but was a SF National Guard unit. So he may not be working that now because he takes other assignments that may be outside of special operations community. But he is, for one, a tabbed special force and tabbed Ranger as well. And so don't quote me here, but generally speaking, there's about 27% of the Army are Ranger qualified. In other words, they've been through Ranger school, 60 days of hell, which is really about leadership and small unit tactics. And then a very small percent of that will go on to the Ranger Regiment to serve in what we call a Tier 2 Ranger Regiment mission. So that's generally what it is. So generally that's how it is. So he more in line falls in the special operations forces, which is unconventional warfare type activities, as opposed to the Ranger pipeline activities. But he is Ranger qualified, absolutely.
But he's long tab, not short.
He has both, but he served not in a Ranger regiment. He served in SF special operations units.
Gotcha. Yep. Now I got the clarification on that. Because I don't think people understand that there's a huge difference, because within the community, there's the community, and then there's the other guys.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not putting anybody down.
No,
I got respect
not at all.
for everybody.
Absolutely.
You bite off that big piece of steak. That's no joke.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anybody who goes to Ranger school and can come out with a tab has earned a lot of respect, has earned a lot about themselves, and earned some qualities and traits that will only help them in their military career. You will be a better leader for it. You're going to be especially a combat leader, because of the small team tactics it requires to actually lead Ranger platoons and squads and bigger in Ranger school. And you can take those to your organization, the things you learn in Ranger school. It's not only better that organization, better yourself and each individual soldier.
So how do you think, because, we have good leaders, we have bad leaders, put in different situations, and you've got these testing fields of, best Ranger, it's an event. I would say it's a fun event when it's over. It's a fun event when it's over. Just like any, you do a 12-mile march, full pack, all that. That's no joke, right? Um, but but understanding those fields of training, and then you gain these experiences as a leader, because again, like I've said before, and you know this as well, you always have eyes on you no matter what, right? So you have the responsibility there. And so how did you balance as a leader, um, because you can either choose to be a good leader or a bad leader, but you're still a leader no matter what. But choosing how you balance that authority level, deploying your orders, your directives, your tasks, and in such a manner that if you demand respect, you ain't gonna get it, right? We know that. But how did your guys respect you in that sense, with that type of mentality, of that balancing act, if you will? I'm sorry, I'm like all over the place on that, but it's a
Yeah.
pretty loaded question.
Yeah, I think one to unpackage that. So, especially in tactical and operational, but leadership and authority, they're really going to go hand in hand because one, as a leader, you're putting in this leadership position, so you're automatically given the authority. And the key is how are you executing that leadership? Because authority is going to be there. And so, through my career, I've had the great and anybody really who's going to be in the military. And I think in a lot of organizations, if you're aware, you're going to see leaders who are good and what we call bad. And how we call bad are usually those toxic leaders, right? That's how the label.
Correct.
Good leadership,
Yeah.
toxic leadership. Now, end result may be the same because they have authority and they have a mission and they're going to get it done. It's just how they're
Right.
going to go about getting that done. Now, a good leader
Right.
along the way has learned a lot of different great skills and traits that's going to accomplish the mission better and in more cohesive and more
Hmm.
team oriented. And so for me, it's really sitting back and having some understanding and applying some of those skills of the good leaders and understanding, man, that is toxic leadership, and I don't want to do that. And there's a couple things
Yeah.
that for me that help develop that capability of good leadership with authority. And one,
Yeah.
it's always going to be self-awareness. I learned this early on. Is being self-aware. A couple things: you're verbal and nonverbal. So there are things that you can say and do, and how you're saying it. You got to be aware how it's coming across, and you need to be aware on the individual who's receiving in receive mode, whether on what their actions or the case. So being very self-aware of how I'm telling somebody to do something, how you're going about it, as opposed to saying, "Listen, there is a time and place, say, get out there and do this," or say, "Hey, check
Hmm.
it out. Hey, we got a tough road ahead of us. I need these three things done. All right, I need your help. Let's kind of work together." And you lay it out. I need you to do this, and this is why I need to do it. So really being communicative and providing expectation. But it's not. It's the way you come across. It's not necessarily in the demanding. You will do this because you have the authority. You don't have to treat people that way. So one
Exactly.
is that self-awareness, understanding how you are projecting, and that takes time,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
understanding how that person is receiving that feedback. And then once you understand that, you can use it to a great effect. Because when you want to be annoyed, not necessarily have to use language to be annoyed, they're going to understand by some of those nonverbal cues. They're like, "Oh, the commander is pissed. We got to get this done and let's do it right."
Right.
As
Right.
opposed to
Right.
this mother ever wants us to do this and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, that was always huge is self-awareness is
Yeah.
a key skill to learn.
I think that when you're looking at the family unit, it's no different because you have your wife, you have your kids, and so being a leader, people just don't understand exactly what you're talking about in that mentality. I think is where a lot of the breakdown in the family can really take place, because you have a guy who says, "I'm the leader, I'm the guy, I'm the answer man, right? Do
Yeah.
what I say, not as I do, all that, right? Okay." But the failure is that if he's not leading with humility from the get-go, I've told people this many times, and I say it pretty plainly to them, and I say, "Listen, this is what's going to happen in leadership. So if you're a true mark of a leader, You know, you tell somebody, hey, let's go on a hike. You've got directives. You know how far you want to go. You know what time you want to be back in, right? Well, if you take a peek back behind you and there ain't nobody following you, then you're just taking a long walk by yourself,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's the plain and thick of it.
Mhm.
So when we're looking at the family unit and as an alpha male, the alpha male really, what he does is he leads by that example, but he leads in that humility to gain that respect amongst his wife, amongst his kids. And man, I'm telling you, it's a rare find too, is when you see that in another man and that, you know, he says, honey, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do to get there. It's not even a question. It's like, when we packing, what do we got to do? You know, let's get after it. Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing transfers over in your leadership in the military, because you got troops, you got guys that are walking in just like you know, you walked in right out of high school, you know, you got kids to take care of, you know, it's no different. It really is. And outside of like newbie, like what's the term that they call somebody fresh out of boot? Do they still call them boot, or what do they call them?
Yeah. Boot, newbie. Yeah. Green. Yeah.
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 So you look back at your family, you got youngsters, you know, you got an 11-year-old young man who's basically at that age, you know, where he's really being refined into what he wants to be according to the examples in front of him. And I just think, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this too, is that, you know, I think that's so imperative that when we start out that process, whether you got a new recruit or you've got a new son, you know, new daughter, it doesn't matter. If you condition set with them by your example, saying this is what we're going to do and this is what we're not going to do, how you convey that is so vitally important, because you can be right 1,000 times and erase all the 1,000 times that you've been right by that one time of how you've conveyed it. Correct?
True. True. Yeah. And just going back to what you said, you know, that communication, it's laying out expectations, right? You do that often and early and often, whether it's with family or again in the workforce. That becomes vital. You lay those expectations and then you hold them accountable for that, right? Now, how you go about holding them accountable and the punishments, you know, that's a whole nother story. But that's key. That's an important factor on that as well.
Hey, Alpha Man, if you guys are looking for some really cool gear, I just want to promote this company because I genuinely believe in it. It's called Seek Jesus. I've got their hoodie and I really enjoy it. It's nice and comfortable. It's got in really big letters on the back, Seek Jesus, a little bit of letters on the front that say the same thing. If you're looking to make a statement for Christ and you want to spark that conversation right off the get-go without even having to crack your Bible, I want you guys to go check them out. Check them out on Instagram or on the web. You can find them at www.seekjesus.co. Check out their clothing line. They've got hats, they've got shorts, they've got beanies. They've got everything you need to properly rep Jesus. Go check them out at www.seekjesus.co. So my sons, I raised two boys myself. They're 21 and 19 now.
Wow.
They're now, I know it's insane. My youngest one he tried out his wings and he, you know, he moved over to your old territory.
Yeah.
He's over in Jacksonville now. And so what I used to do is, so when they would have a squabble or they would have a disagreement with the task that I was giving them to do in the house, I'd say, okay, so this is what we're going to do. So you have the choice to do what you're asked to do, or you can do push-ups. Which do you prefer? And so the first time that I did it, they didn't know how many push-ups I had intended for them. So I said, all right, so what are we doing? Are you gonna basically take care of your room? Are you gonna help out with your chores? Or are you gonna do push-up? And my youngster was the hardest one always, man. He'd always he'd eyeball me and he'd be like, oh, I'm gonna challenge Dad. And he said, I'm gonna do push-ups. I said, oh, you're gonna do push-ups, huh? Oh, okay, all right. Well, check this out. So I'd like you to do, obviously he wasn't in condition for 50 push-ups. So I give him the 50 push-up task and he's like, he might got it, I don't know, probably like maybe 15 unclean and his arms are shaking, right? And then so I looked at him and his brother, Noah's his older brother, and I said, I said, every time you guys want to bite off this right here, I'll have it waiting for you every single time. This is going to teach you that this is not what you want. It's much easier to listen to what I have for you, because what I'm asking of you is not really that difficult. And I can only imagine when you're looking at a new recruit with the same thing. Of course, you're the veteran. Of course, you know how it works. You know how the system of the military works. They don't. Yeah. But they all, it's funny, man. They all still they come back at you. And I guarantee you could probably pick out countless names that have looked at you and said, nah, man, that's not the way we're going to do that. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, so how did you overcome that? You know, when these guys would give you that look or that attitude, you know, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, the very first thing is that's when there's a switch when, you know, because, you know, unlike a lot of occupations in the military, when there's a task and there's an order.
I like that switch.
That's your job. So, you know, the guy that's, you know, showing some compassion, being understanding, and now, you know, there has to be that switch. Now, how far do you ramp that up is, you know, that's a whole nother skill.
Yeah.
But that's where it becomes, all right, guys, now this wasn't an ask. This is what I'm telling you we're going to do, you know, and then it adjusts. And, oh, by the way, now I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And once complete, come back and see me. Let's have a discussion. So now they just receive a whole lot more tasks, right? They need to be done that they could have been done a lot earlier. And then guess what? I'm going to be waiting. And then we're just going to have a little discussion on, hey, here's the military, right? This is how it works. We can either do this, hey, as a team, which I would much rather do. I want to garner your support, or I can tell you the way it's going to be done. So yeah, that's when I have to, you know, make the little switch and realize, you know, this is not a democracy, guys. This is how it's going to be done. But luckily, it's a very few instances where I've ever had to do that because one, like I said, I've had great leaders to emulate and pull skills from. And I was pretty successful building, military teams, whether from the platoon all the way to the company and higher levels. So, yeah,
I like it. I like it. So I asked my pastor, the drill instructor, and so I said, so what is your favorite tool of weapon? And he said, and he paused for a second, and he goes, you know, man, I'm just gonna be honest with you. That's like trying to choose your favorite kid. It's pretty difficult to do, right? So I'll extend the same question to you. So if you were going to say, now I know it's job specific because you don't bring out one tool for every job,
That's right?
But I think I know what you're going to say, but I just want to see if it's across the board in each branch. So what would you say is your most favorite tool of weapon of choice?
It's going to be the most casually producing weapon for whatever task is at hand. So, hey, if I'm out on patrol, for instance, in Afghanistan, it's going to be that radio operator who has air support, so fixed wing or rotary, who can provide me direct air cover to an enemy that's sitting on the mountaintop. But it's so hard because I want the most casual producing weapon up against that, and that could be a variety. If we're in a small maneuver element, it's going to be the 240 Bravo machine gun. Could be the grenade launcher because I can reach out and touch somebody over a ridge line. That is so difficult to say. But ultimately, I want a well-trained soldier who is gritty, determined, and ready to go out there and take it to the enemy. So I'll take that. That's my weapon of choice.
That's your go-to. That's your weapon of choice, dude on a swivel. That's where it's at.
Fully engaged, ready to rock and roll.
Oh man, I love that. So listen, man, we've kept you here a while, and I want to wind this down because I know you're on a different time zone than me. So I want to get to just a couple more things before we sign off here. So, you know, and pick this story according to your choosing, of course. Man, there's a lot of guys out here that are listening to this, different backgrounds. It might be the marketplace, it might be a student, and definitely it's going to be military as well. And so I know everybody deals with with PTSD differently because, like you said, your eyes have seen things that the human mind is not built for, right? But we do it. We press forward and whatnot. Um, how have you handled that? That friendship with the Lord and just kind of help you through that process, because that's a man, that's a one department stop shop right there because I believe that, he's the only person that really can help with that area because that's just it's and I'm not speaking from experience at all, guys. I'm just saying pain is pain, but there's some levels of pain that the average man is not going to experience, such as yourself. So how did you apply that friendship status with him and in dealing with that?
Yeah. And I'll first put this in a little context. So, when I think of, alpha males and leadership, and you could be an alpha female, there's quite a those.
Right.
So there's three pillars
Right.
for a strong foundation. We touched really upon it. And I reflect on those pillars. That's the mental, that's the physical, which we talked a lot about physical, and the
Right.
spiritual
Right.
piece. And I
Yeah.
think all of those important and support each other. And you remove one of those and you take it out of the equation. Well, just like a three-legged stool, you lose that foundation. And so one is recognizing early on that those three are important. So that's why physical fitness is always important because it's going to bleed over. The mental
Yeah.
piece really into
Yeah.
that spiritual, especially dealing with some of the trials and tribulations from being a wounded warrior, a combat veteran is, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
one, I compartmentalize a lot. That's just protection. A lot of us that's
Sure.
gone through it, and that bleeds
Yeah.
over into other things. I'm not married by choice. I have a great relationship, which you met Jen, of course. She's
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
so I have her who's understanding. But the Lord is really the one that I lean to because all else, when spiritual fails, or when all else fails and things get difficult, the spiritual realm, the Lord, is that gap to the why. Or when things are getting bad and you really don't understand why, I can reflect, and my strength and the love for the Lord helps bridge those difficult times. Because I don't know, no matter how successful you are, there's going to be difficult times, and I know I can rely on the Lord to get me through those uncertain times that we all will face. Because I'm going to ask, why is this happening? But I don't need to always know why.
Right.
All I need to know
Right.
is, what? The Lord's going to get me through this. There is a reason that maybe I don't understand, but it's going to allow me to get through this. That happened in the alleyways of Baghdad. It happened on multiple patrols in Baghdad, Mosul, Afghanistan, Western Africa. So it really, gives me that ease to know that, I can get over this. There are better times ahead. There's a reason for everything that's happened. It's not woe is me, because there's other people that are also in bad situations. And just, Lord, hey, please just get me to this next step. I'm going to ride that wave, and I'll top of that wave soon. And that just really gives me that confidence in those uncertain times. And that's key for me, and being aware of that.
So really it's that reliance that being aware that what you don't understand or what you definitely can't control, you have to rely upon that greater power source in yourself, meaning God. And I know for me, it's been in so many different areas of my life, but especially in the uncertainty of those situations, extreme uncertainty. You go down an urban alleyway, you don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You have something dramatically change in an instant. You're going to find out who you are. Like you said earlier, when you put yourself in difficult situations, you're going to find out who you are. But here's the other flip of that coin is that when you found out who you are, and then in an instant it's flipped on you and you don't understand what to do with who you are, that's when you got to turn to him, man.
Yeah,
that's when it gets real, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, and I was just going to say, and I don't want to make it sound that everybody worships in their own way. And
Sure.
this is just from Cole DeRosa's Foxhole.
Yeah.
How you worship is fine, but having that relationship with God, however way
Yeah.
that is, being in church on Sunday, or it's
Yeah.
kneeling at the foot of your bed every night, or
Right.
in the morning, that relationship is what's important. It's not necessarily what environment that you are putting yourself in. And
Yeah.
so I don't want people to think, there's many ways you can have that relationship with God, but you just got to
Right.
find out how that is and how that works for you and how you can make that stronger. And there's nothing but goodness that comes out of that.
Absolutely. So my pastor was telling me he got saved. This is crazy. So he got saved as a drill instructor while a drill instructor in the United States Marines. We know that when you're a drill instructor, that's not the most funnest place to suddenly become a Christian and start following Jesus, because it requires a certain mentality, certain presence, which we all know, and it's not very friendly, if you will, or conducive for the culture. And so, he was elaborating on that, and he just basically he becomes a Christian, and this is what happens: is he says his circle changed, and then all of a sudden his guys, kind of some of his real tight circle guys, they didn't change, but the other guys that were coming in, he gets deployed. He's in Afghanistan, and his Marine, who he would say his encouragement, who is the guy he looked to say, that's a guy I want to follow. So these guys are giving him all kinds of crap, man. I mean, they're giving him a really hard time, making fun of him, and he's sitting there just doing his diligence, man. He's minding his own business. He's staying in his own lane. He's just sitting there doing his thing. And the guy's sitting there, and he's like, man, how's that going to help you? I mean, but what this clown over here doesn't know is that his sergeant at the time is overhearing this entire conversation. And so he walks into where they're gathered, and he looks at this guy, and everybody knows who this guy is. Like, this guy is legend. Like, he's got street credit big time in the military, in the Marines. And so he goes, so you think that that book over there is not helpful? It's not a good tool. Is that the conclusion you've drawn? And the guy just sit there. He's just quiet. And so then he looks at my pastor and he says, "You are a smart, wise man for reading that book, sir. Carry on." And everybody it was mic drop, shut your hole, know your role kind of moment.
Yeah.
It was a trip, right? So men out there, man, just understand it doesn't matter if you're in the military. It doesn't matter if you're in the sports arena. It doesn't matter if you're in the marketplace. You're a pastor. You are a leader. If you do not include God in your process, why do it? It just doesn't make sense, because we're nothing without him at the end of the day. So final word here. So if you are going to, in front of a leader, whether it's pastor, military, doesn't matter. What would you say as an alpha male saying to somebody, coming up, what that looks like and how to unpack that to that young man coming up?
Yeah, I've said first thing is, becoming a leader, an alpha male. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Some of it is going to be internal, but some of it can very well be learned and applied. But you need to be confident. You need to be driven. You need to set some goals. You need to be very comfortable putting yourself in leadership and decision-making positions. You want to be comfortable by leading. Obviously, you want to lead by example. That means you need to be an expert in your field. I do not care what field it is, what trade craft. Seek out to become an expert, not just tell people what to do. Become an expert, because that's going to build that street cred that we talked about. And you always have to do it, going back to what we said, showing with humility and compassion. Because too often, many alpha leaders, not many, there are some alpha leaders that really give a bad rap to alpha leadership because they come across arrogant, cocky, know-it-all. While yes, they may know it all because they become subject matter experts, but it's how you come across. You can come across as a leadership, knowing what needs to be done, being an expert in your skill and your trade craft, but you can do it with humility and you can do it with compassion with those around you, because you are going to foster a much better group, team, whatever the case may be.
I like that, man, because that has been almost every guy I've had on here that's given the response to that question really says that well, is that you got to have that compassion to drive that force of leadership, because you have to understand there's just different levels, right? There's the guy that's coming up, there's the guy that's above you, right? You've all been at different places, right? Different experiences, different skill sets. And, especially, apex predators like yourself, there's always competition. There's always, there's camaraderie in that. But in the same token, helping somebody understand that and being able in the same position to balance that and learn from somebody that's at where you want to be, I think it's having that 360 view that you don't have it all figured out.
Right.
And if anything that it's worth doing is going to take a team, number 2, right?
Yeah.
Number 3, you've got to have that support of that humility and that compassion that you were talking about earlier. I think it's just super key.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, there was other things that I wanted to get to, but I've ran out on your time, man. And it brother, it's just been, gosh, it's been a pleasure seeing your face and just hearing your stories and your knowledge and your humility, your example that you lead by. And, man, I'm proud to call you my brother, because you really are. Been with me through some tough times as well. Giving me advice when didn't know where to go. I had that other iron sharpening some iron going, man, I don't know what to do about this. What do you think?
That's right.
But man, I just appreciate you. And hopefully you've had a good time here on Amen podcast, and that we'd like to have you back, man, for volume 2, if you wouldn't mind.
I would absolutely be up for it. And thank you for the opportunity. And, I know you bring a unique background to your project, but I'm very honored to be part of this much larger project and be a piece. And hopefully I was able to provide, a little bit of, impart and leave that someone can take out of this and, move forward and, enhance their life. But it was a great opportunity. It's always great to see you. And definitely, I'm always here and ready to support however I can.
Yeah, man. Check Coles out. You can definitely go to his Instagram, Facebook's page. I wasn't sure if we mentioned that. You got a Facebook page as well, I'm assuming.
Yep, it's same as my IG. Yeah, it's tied right to it.
Okay.
Yep.
Check him out. And say a quick hello from Amen Podcast if you're a viewer. And if Cole's such an approachable guy, if you hit him up with a realistic question, you don't want to know about training, you want to know about dieting or anything like that, the guy will shoot you something. He'll get back to you. He's a busy guy. I can't really say what your new role is, but you've got a recent promotion that's pretty cool. But he'll reach back out to you. But check us out on iTunes and Spotify, and definitely watch this episode on YouTube, and leave us some comments down below if you would, and just let us know what you thought about it, what you liked about it. We appreciate it. All right, fellas, stay alpha. Take care.
Signing off.